So we'll carry on with the mayor's engagements, and I'll hurry up. So we've done the presentation, certificates and gifts to pupils at George Spencer. On the 16th, it was the 80th birthday celebration of Mr. Straw. He is a gentleman I know very well, and has lived in Stapleford with his family all his life, and is quite a character. I think you probably know him, Councillor McGrath and his brothers.
I know a few of them, Chair.
Yeah. So that was a very pleasant evening. And then on the 17th, it was the garden competition judging day. So we're nearly through that. I would very much like to thank the people that helped me with that, and that was Sal Owen, it was Beverly, Sue Patterson, and our town clerk as well, who helped to arrange, and Steve the gardener. We haven't quite finished, we've got some more gardens to inspect, but again, it was, Simon had told me that when he was mayor, it was one of the best things he did. And I have to say, it was quite an eye-opener, and the weather was kind to us because it wasn't too hot. It was really lovely. On the 22nd, there was a presentation of certificates and gifts to honour clients for their contribution to the Platinum Jubilee mosaics. I have to say that these mosaics have really been marvellous for getting people involved, the youngsters particularly, and they were very innovative and clever, and it was lovely. And this honour engagement was with youngsters with disabilities, and quite severe disabilities. And they have volunteers to help and encourage them to meet their potential. And again, this is so inspirational. And they were lovely. Well, I wouldn't expect them to be anything else, but you know, it was so good for me to be amongst people like that against all the odds, they are doing so well and reaching their potential. I don't know whether any of this is going off piste a little bit here, but I saw a programme on the news about the children in foreign in foreign countries, and how they treat their disabled children. And in places like Russia, I had a friend who actually worked there in these homes, and they are appalling. And we have to pat ourselves on the back that we do so much work. We do a lot of moaning and groaning about money and one thing and another. But let me tell you, we're amongst the best in the world at how we treat our people with disabilities. We've got a way to go. We'll never be perfect, but it's inspirational. It's really, really makes me proud. And on the 24th, I went to an Insight Community fundraiser with Stapleford Town Football Club. Never thought you'd see me on the pitch, but I was out there with my whistle. And that was, again, another working with inspirational people. I can't tell you how overwhelming it is and how it makes my heart sing, because it's brilliant. And I think anybody here that has been a mayor or is a mayor will feel the same way. I should be very sorry to give this up, because it's just opened my eyes to so much. Now, you'll also see there is the mayor's thoughts and insights, Now, this is not this is just a copy. This is just being sort of put together for this evening. It will be changed a little bit. It's just about me and some of the things I have done and seen and whatever. I will be writing the next issue, and I'll be doing these on a regular basis, just to keep you all informed as to what I'm doing and that I'm earning my keep, so to speak, as a mayor. But all in all, it's been a remarkable experience, and these are early days yet, so I'm sure the best is yet to come. And that is that. So,
just wanted to say I really like this little
yes,
bit of information.
Well-
I think it's a real good addition.
it's not quite, it needs to be tweaked a little bit, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, grammatically and everything, but it will be done, and that's what we're going to do
No, I think it's
in
nice.
future. So just to let you know where I am and what I'm up to. Where are we on the agenda, please? Right, this is, yes. Well, item 6. So it's item 6, and it's public participation session, and we have a gentleman here who is going to speak to us. And I believe he's going to be talking to us about the post office and giving us some thoughts on that. Now, councillors will not debate the matters raised, and no decisions can be made on any items raised in this session. They will be put forward to the next meeting. So if we let the gentleman have his say, and we can make notes, then that's what we'll do. Yeah, yes, the town clerk's just pointed out to me that we won't have to wait until the next meeting, because we can talk about it in a later session. We have the post office on our agenda already, so apologies for that. Thank you, Sabrina. But he needs to speak now because he only has 15 minutes. So Roy, if you wouldn't mind, if you'd like to speak to us and give your thoughts about your feelings towards
Post office.
the post office.
I'm a bit ashamed of Stapleford at the moment because we've lost the bank, we've lost greengrocers, we've lost the post office, and the news post office now is Franco. And why should we? Are we going back to a village or something like that? We don't know. Because there's nothing in Stapleford at all.
And is there anything else you would like to say, Roy?
We've not got a railway station. Why has Ilkeston got 2? We've got nothing.
Well, thank you very much for that. We will be discussing some of these things later on the agenda.
Right.
We can't talk about it right now,
No,
but
I can understand
later
that.
on we will be doing that. So, would you like us to arrange for someone to come and fetch you, or?
Chair, perhaps
You're very
Chair,
welcome to stay, Roy, if you
Yeah.
want to, until we get to a point where we go into other details. But if you'd like to stay and listen to us, you won't be able to
I don't mind.
participate.
I don't mind.
So are you quite happy to do that? Well, thank you very much indeed.
Chair, I'm sure if Roy, we will be discussing it, but obviously a written response from the council as well,
Yes.
to know what we're doing, just in case, you know, what discussion's going on. A written response to Roy in how we hopefully move forward on what we'll be discussing later.
That will be on the agenda anyway. We will do that, obviously. So
Just as a point of order, can we move to put 10 as the next matter, or not? Or will that disturb the running?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Right, so we will move it forward then. Okay. So we're now moving on to item 10, aren't we?
70.
Yes.
Just item 10, yeah.
Oh, right.
So it's a 10.
It's on the thing though, it's 70 to 71.
So, item 10, pages 70 to 75. Is to consider how the town council may support the reopening of the main post office in the town. In Stapleford town. So I'm going to ask the town clerk to give us an update on options and cost implications. And then at the end of that, councillors will be asked to furnish instructions to the town clerk on any decisions that may be taken. So if I can hand you over to the town clerk.
Thank you, Chair. So first of all, to introduce this item, it was actually brought to my attention by Councillor McRae. He did put in a motion, but it was sort of a very simplistic motion, which didn't give the council opportunity to discuss fully all the possible options that we could look at. So I have turned that into this report and sort of given an overview of the options. So I've not gone into in-depth detail because there's no point in doing that if council's not interested at this stage, which is why I'm asking for instructions in case you might want me to look into one or more options in more detail to bring back to a future meeting. So obviously in the report it sets out that the post office has actually closed now, and the postmaster did resign, and I wasn't aware at the time, but he was only a temporary postmaster. This was an issue at least a year ago that I looked into, but then somebody stepped in, so we didn't need to do anything about it. The post office hasn't provided any further information to me directly, but looking on their website, they haven't had anybody come forward, and they've put information in the public domain, which I've copied onto this agenda for you to tell you about the actual business that's on offer for somebody to take on. The council itself doesn't have powers at this point in time to run a post office. If you wanted to do that, we would need to adopt the general powers of competence, which currently we can do. We do meet the criteria. Obviously, that's something to think about in detail, but you have to think quickly because obviously at the end of the agenda, we know that I'm not going to be here for much longer. So if you want to follow that, that's something we need to put in motion now because it will last until it's completed as a project, even if your capability to meet the criteria falls away whilst you're in the motion of doing that project. So the options that I've looked at are for us to buy a premises, which we could keep the rent low on, so that somebody on the high street could come in and run a business from it. That would be either a private individual or a community enterprise that might be set up to do that. We could offer part of the Carnegie Civic Centre, again for a private or community run enterprise to run the franchise. We could seek to run the post office ourselves, or we could do nothing and hope that somebody sorts it out in the community. So I've done a bit of an options appraisal on each of those things. None of them really are favourable to us. As I say, there's lots of risks and implications to look at this stage, but I thought it'd be worth councillors just debating what they think, what they know the community wants, and then provide them with instructions to follow up and look at something in more detail to bring back a business case if necessary. So back to you, Chair. No, obviously I'm happy to answer questions if anybody's got questions.
So I'm just going to open this up to debate. So I think it was Councillor McRae that put his hand up first.
Yeah, sorry. I thought, I mean, obviously it's not up to me, it's everybody, isn't it? It would be nice to, because I've spoken to someone at the post office, they've been to Stapleford, they've been into, I'm not saying every business, but they've been into lots of business, perhaps ones they thought might be suitable and that, and no one's interested, which is quite sad, because when we did that a few years ago, and it was Gadgets at the time, wasn't it, or whatever they call it, Sean's shop, and the lady in there was interested, so we helped and supported her, and it moved in there, and sadly it's gone now, hasn't it, for the week. But the person from the post office, the officer, if that's what we call them, is more than happy to come along and talk, like, you know, whether it was like a separate meeting that could just be, you know, it doesn't have to be formal, or I don't know what's the best way to do it, whether it's formal or not. Perhaps not a formal meeting, then you could invite businesses to come along, they might have some questions they want to ask. So perhaps that would be an idea, because they're up for that. They could have a look at this place, look at the annex and all that kind of stuff, because they might come in and go, it's not suitable, and if that's what they say, do you know what I mean? I just thought it would be nice that we try and do something, because, you know, we've heard a gentleman speak earlier, and lots of people have said similar things, that they're disappointed there's not a post office on the high street. We can't make a business take one on, can we? But if the people from the post office wanted to come along, you know, sit in here, answer some questions, give a talk about what they need and what they expect, somebody might go, you know what, that's all right. And I think it'd be better than just them going into a shop when someone's actually working and saying, do you want to have a post office in here? Because they're probably working, and that's what they're doing, isn't it? They might not be listening properly, and they might be listening properly. So I just thought it would be a good idea to do something like that, if the council was mindful to do that. If not, and it was a do nothing, then there's no point inviting someone along, is there? So that was like an idea I got.
It's an option.
It's an option, yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
make notes of that, and
Thank
then we'll come back to you. It was Councillor Brown, I think, after. Councillor
First of
McRae.
all, I think we all share the gentleman's dismay and that the post office has gone, and the bank, which we fought to keep, and the bank closed on false criteria. They just didn't know where they were working, sadly. But of course, the post office can function as a bank for those that are still dealing in money, which many people prefer to do. I was just going to ask, under 221 and 222, is there any option under the town's deal for monies to be used? Is it too late for monies to be used for that?
Yes.
I would say that it is too late for that. I'm not sure that we'd be successful in that, the town's deal.
Perhaps.
Simon?
I thought it was Tim first, then me.
Oh, is it Tim? So sorry. I know I saw so many hands go up.
Yeah, it's understandable. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like Richard's suggestion of using this place and our powers of communication to bring any interested parties and the post office together to see whether there are any potential franchisees out there that just haven't really considered it, that wouldn't necessarily make the approach in their own right, but would be happy to come to a public meeting where they can ask questions about it. I wouldn't feel that it's right for the town council to run a post office in its own right. I think that my feel is that would be, well, we've seen examples of public money being invested in private ventures and then going horribly wrong, and it's not too far away from where we currently are, and it's not a good place to be. And I don't think the financial environment at the moment is stable enough for us to be able to consider that as a valid long-term venture. The ideas of renting out either a separate premises and acting as landlords, or using a part of our existing facilities, does have in my head a certain amount of appeal. So I'd be interested to further explore that. Thank you.
For those comments.
Yeah, as I was going to say, and I agree with what Tim said and Richard has said. At the end of the day, if we can use something like the annex or something like that in conjunction with inviting businesses to come and talk with the post office itself, or a representative for a post office, maybe that will attract some businesses that, as you rightly said, can't really talk to a post office guy when they're in the middle of a business day. So I think if we can advertise that, yes, we have somewhere that you could use for a post office itself. For example, the annex is big enough, and have people going into there would attract a lot of interest.
Sorry, just to sort of add a bit of extra advice into that. the point of the franchise is that it's on its own, it is not a sustainable business. It must be attached to a retail business where you've already got your staff,
Right.
you're already paying for your overheads. So to have it as a standalone is unlikely to be successful.
I stand
You just
corrected.
can't pay for staff.
It's not viable.
I think, thank you, Chair, I think without a doubt, we all want the post office to be here, right? Richard's idea is good, and thank you, Sabrina, for saying that. I think the problem is, and I replied to Ruth when the comments come out and the post office, I think we need to be talking to the post office about the franchise deal that they offer. Now, if they are offering, and I'm well aware that you've got to have the post office not standalone, because you need the rest of that. If you look at the figures, Tim, and I know you're good at figures, and you, David, you're working 12, 13 hours for next to nothing. If you talk to the lady that runs the Brankett post office, she'll tell you exactly the same. So we all feel strong about this. So it's the post office we want here, right? And I don't think an open format with all the public here, but invite members of the public like Roy, like one or two who have got strong feelings, and I feel more towards the older side. I know I'm getting old now, Jan, but the older side of the public that really need a post office, that really and are no good on the internet. I know you're not bad, Roy, but are no good on the internet and need to know what the post office, right, what they want to do to help us, because in 18 months' time, or as Bob pointed out, they didn't get the Towns deal money's supposedly all got, but in 18 months' time, it might be a good business proposition. But as we stand now, it'd be hard for someone young or anything to start a business up because they'd struggle. You've got to have the right business model, and that's where not in such words, but I put that to the post office. They need to be here talking to us with members of the public to see if they've got any flexibility. Because if they haven't, we're done for.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. That's where we should be starting. Councillor McRae, I think you were next.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd just make a proposal then that we hold a meeting, like an invite only, because like as John says, you don't want everyone turning up, even though everybody is interested. We could just put a little quick, like an A5 leaflet together and hand deliver it to the businesses on the high street. Just say to them, there's a meeting on this day to be agreed with the postmaster, not the postmaster, the post people. I'll send you the contact details, it's not a problem. A date that fits them, held here. So that's what my proposal is, that we hold a meeting in here, we invite the businesses to come along, a date and time to be agreed between the town clerk and the representative from the post office.
I'm happy to
We
second
can just
that.
try from there, can't we?
Well, I think that, I just would like David to come in though next.
Thank you.
Because before we move to any votes or anything, but I'm very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very difficult situation, obviously, and businesses can't run at a loss. We all know that. I would totally agree with Councillor Hallam and Councillor Cyproth and Councillor Richard here, McRae, getting some information and getting the right people here if the businesses wish to come, which is hard a thing to do at the best of times, as all councillors know. The thing is that if the council decided to go down the road of maybe using the annex, you can forget about that because that building won't be secure enough. And they will expect us to make it more secure. The days of the post office are totally different than what they used to be. So I have to say to you, if we're going to have a post office, and I hope we do, because there's a lot of older people and younger people who still want the post office. But I will say to you now, keep away from the post. If anyone's got the idea of having one on our land here, forget about it. It has, in my opinion, it has to be on the high street. Somewhere on the high street. Now, I don't know if anyone's looked into it, but sometimes, a poor pensioner like me has to go to cheap shops, and there's nothing wrong in going in cheap shops. But sometimes I go into Pound Stretcher, you know, they got plenty of space in there that they could use, possibly. So, you know, think about it. It's a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to be. And the other thing is, I would second Richard's Madam Mayor. Very difficult, but really it's got to be on the high street somewhere.
Thank you for that. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. As a former business person, it does need to be within a shop, I think. I think Tim was just.
I think it was Sue.
It was Sue.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, Sue.
I think the idea of inviting people on
Yeah.
to discuss it is, you know, I think that's a good starting base. I would personally, out of the preferences, I think looking at buying a building and lowering the rent is the, if you could look into that, would be good, because obviously we don't know all the implications of that at this stage. So as an option, if we could have more information on that, that would be great. I would also, I mean, I know we're disregarding the annex in lots of ways, but if we could have somebody from the post office come and say, actually, no, it's not suitable, then we know it's not suitable, because we're just surmising at the moment. So yeah, that's really my thoughts. I think Stapleford needs a post office. Obviously Roy's come down to hear his opinion, and I think there's many more people out there.
I think you're absolutely right. There's no question about it. That there's not very, no one probably.
Just one last point. It might be worth doing like a bit of a public consultation on whether it's just over social media, just to get a feel of what. I mean, I think we all know what people think, but it might be worth asking and seeing what feedback we get back, really, because obviously it has implications to the residents of Stapleford as well, whichever way we go.
It's Tim, I think, first.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak, Tim.
Yeah, just offering up a bit of joint working on this actually, because I think it'd be a lot easier for my team at the borough to touch base with all the businesses. So if you don't mind, Richard, sort of an adaptation of your proposal, that Sabrina and the ECDev team work to sort out. The ECDev team can sort out the invitations to the businesses because they've already got all the direct contact details, and Sabrina sorts out time and place, and we get the two councils working together to sort this out. I think it'd be more efficient to do it that way.
And I'll buy you a pint, Tim, if you can get Pound Stretcher in. Well, that is, as David said, is a very good idea. Sorry, Jan, and if any of you are aware, they've been one of the biggest bugbearers throughout the Townsdale, haven't they? Well, that is a fantastic idea, what David come up with there.
Yeah.
It'd be ideal, and it might increase their footfall, but...
Yeah. So the Co-op Bank used to be in that building, didn't it? They used to have the bank bit there. So even if Pound Stretcher would just give a bit of space.
Yeah.
Right, are there any, just one more question, and then just
The last time,
Thomas after.
oh sorry, the
Yeah,
last
no.
time
Yeah, go on.
when Gadgets was going to take it over, I went round and spoke to a couple of the shop owners. And one or two of them were very concerned because at the time there was all that problem with the computer system and people being prosecuted, then found out they weren't
That's
rightly
right, yeah,
prosecuted.
yeah.
And people do not want to touch that with a barge pole, and they're still very, very wary of this. And that came quite to the front of most of them. A lot of them said they just weren't interested because of that. And I think it's something that if we can get somebody in from the post office and say, look, we've done something better, but that's what we're going against. I think we've got to be very careful, but we need to try and attract the post office back into Stapleford. I agree with what everybody said this evening. And Roy, thank you very much for bringing up some questions.
just to finish off briefly, I pretty much agree with what most people said, especially Tim and Richard. I think the biggest problem at the moment is trying to find, I think, like again, a business, of course, some kind of premise, but also trying to find a postmaster. And that's why I'm very wary about possibly the town council trying to buy a premise or using the civic centre, because even if we find a suitable premise, if there's no postmaster and it takes months, then this is taxpayers' money that day, and that could be a massive amount wasted if we don't find a postmaster as soon as possible. And who instead would are going to blame with like precepts can we still be us for paying for buying so much, spending so much money. But I think what we need to move next is get people from the post office to speak to businesses and to speak to selected people, and also possibly public consultation, as Councillor Patterson has suggested, to show the level of feeling to the post office that is vital for a town of this size, that we need a post office on the high street.
We have to start from basics, I think. The basics are that we need somebody from the post office in to talk to the business people that we invite in, and talk to us as well to see what is viable, and move forward from there. It's going to take time, but we have to go along in those steps. Sorry.
Just something that's popped into my head. Is there anything that the town council, rather than having to buy a premise to rent it out at a lower cost, is there any initiative that the town council could do to a business? Because we've said it needs to be a viable business. Could we offer an incentive as a town council? Subsidise part of a business. I don't know.
I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, I think our role really is to facilitate the discussion. Obviously, what might come out of that discussion is that they need some sort of incentive, and I think that's a good idea. And I think once we've got an idea of what the businesses need to take on a franchise like that, then we can decide whether, maybe put that out to public consultation. Do you think this is a good idea for taxpayers' money? Do you want us to actually invest in this? And if we get that steer from the public and then the businesses, then I think we can take that forward. But I do think initially, like Richard said, our role is to facilitate a discussion. And then obviously if Tim wants to get the economic development team in Borough, that would be really good.
If you could note that,
Yeah.
full title, if you will, has promised support of the ECDev team.
Well,
I can totally do that.
Yeah.
I can totally do that. Yeah, that's that's the difference between cabinet and committee. So yeah.
These are all good suggestions, but obviously I think we need that steer.
we have to walk
Yeah.
before we can run.
Yeah.
So,
First of all, we need to get in touch with the post office, see what how these places operate and what it takes and things like that, and how viable it will be for us. But one thing that we are all agreed on is we need a post office. We need a post office in Stapleford town, and the starting point is to get the different groups of people together and find out what we can do. Sorry,
You're
I'm
right,
just going to
Chair.
take this last question and then...
Just like we need Roxton involved anyway, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, it's the franchise that has caused the problems to the people that's run it down there anyway, because they're working for nothing. And I'm sure, Tim, you realise that, and all of us, right? So if we get them involved, they need to attract a business with a premises that we haven't got in Stapleford. I know Roy said we ain't got grocers, but as we all know, and I'm not pulling Roy down for this, we've got not a bad market on Thursday that sells good grocers. We've got Tesco, and I know we haven't got a grocers, but then you have to look at what we haven't got, which could support the post office. And that's where we need Roxton to help us as well. Because otherwise, and then the post office to think, well, hold on, there must be something wrong if two have shut. I mean, some of you weren't councillors a long time, I'm sure you was, Jan, when it was going in bargain booths, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the old time, we were all against that. So hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? And we all were against it, the old town and all of us, well, who were council at the time, but perhaps bargain booze or is perhaps I don't know, Tim, do I? I mean, perhaps it was a more successful business model than not any of us thought. So I think we need to be looking at that first, what can tag in together, which I'm sure Tim's team will sort out anyway, but anyway, I'm definitely for it anyway, like we all are.
So we're proposing, so the proposal is to get a meeting arranged between the post office and as many businesses as we can attract and hold that here. Obviously, I'll sort out the arrangements with Becca.
And I'll to take a vote on that.
Yes, we will.
So we'll move that and we'll take a vote on that. So all in favour, please. That is absolutely everybody. No extension of anything. No, right, so.
We're on item 7, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. No, I get confused, David. Right, oh, so this is reports from borough and county councillors. So, we have Councillor Hallam, please. Tim Hallam.
So I'd mention it. I wasn't going to speak much on this, but I think it's quite pertinent, given what Roy's already raised, to discuss some of the economic development work that is going on in Stapleford at the moment. Do you mind if I stand at the front so I'm not talking with my back to Roy? Thank you. Because I don't want to be rude, my friend. So yeah, what we're looking at the moment, we've obviously got a massive amount of work in the long grass currently on the Stapleford Town deal. Some members of this council will have been involved with that, others less so. These projects are going to take a while to come about. I'm very optimistic about the mid to long term future. Right now, I think things are probably, given our financial climate, going to get worse before they get better. I think we can all see that. But there are a couple of interesting things happening at the moment that bode very well for Stapleford in the future. We've got all the work with the Stapleford Town deal. That's going to be quite transformative on the high street, and that I think is going to give a lot of businesses, potential businesses, the opportunity to come in and see it as viable, see it as a town on the way up rather than on the way down. The reason I think that this will work, this is something that the mayor and I might disagree with, and we did disagree at full council at Broxton, I recall. The Stapleford market I see as an interesting indicator on sentiment at the moment of businesses. We've got market traders don't come unless they're turning a profit. They're not charities, and Kimberley, as an example of markets gone wrong, we've actually had to shut it down because we were putting borough effort into organising the market. The vendors were saying, "I'm not turning enough profit." The public weren't turning up to it. Initially, it surged very well, but then it died down, and now we've just shut it down because there's no point in having like one Avon store there or something. It doesn't befit Claire's salary to put that on. We can use her better elsewhere. However, Stapleford is the complete opposite end. Footfall in Stapleford, from the footfall counters, read what you want from it. It's demographic data, but the real indicator is that the butcher, who, as you'll know, we had a butcher, then we lost one, then we got another one every fortnight, has now dropped his other trading opportunity on a Thursday, and is now, and please spread the word out about this, and is now coming to Stapleford every single Thursday. Vendors don't do that if things are looking south, if things are heading south. So I'm really optimistic that that's a sign of things to come, and it's going to be even better when elements of the Stapleford Town deal start manifesting, so that we've actually got a better public space. The Square Sounds has been a good success. People are enjoying that. We've started putting on music during the course of the market day as well, to try and entice people in. So really, I'm feeling I'm feeling generally quite good about this at the moment. So that's my report from the borough in disguise, addressing a lot of what Roy's said. I think it is good. We are having a tough period. I think the country is, but things are very definitely looking up. So that's my report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome, thank you. Anybody else? Anything to say about borough or
County, yeah,
county?
well, I've just got a couple. I've asked, there's been a lot of confusion. I spoke to Tim about the Mini Holland schemes, right, which are actually, as Victoria put it, it's actually urbanisation of street areas, right, and stopping rat runs. So I've asked the lead officer to come out in September, and I'll ask all the different councillors if they want to attend for each area, so you can actually she'll take around your area and what you think could be good, could be bad, and then she'll advise you of what she thinks, and then she'll say whether it's a good scheme or not. So, I mean, there's no end to areas, but we all know each other's areas, but we don't know what it's like on a night when they're running through and they're doing this and they're doing that. So that's what the Mini Holland schemes are based around. So in September, right, Victoria's going to get back to me, and you're all welcome, and you just go up into your own areas and see what you might want, but if the government release the money, which hopefully they will. I'm sure they will. And then the only other thing, basically, is that Rycroft Street will be, as I say, tarmac, but it's not tarmac, is it? They call it something else now. Rycroft Street will be tarmac, so will Maryland Court. So I don't know whereabouts they're doing there. Dave Walker don't seem to know neither. So the footpaths between Sandy Acre Road and to the Erewash Canal, that should also be done. That's going to be done as well, which will give people access to the Erewash Canal. And there'll be a consultation on Blake Road about yellow lines. Obviously, that'll start in September, and where they want to go, because obviously the school's parking up there. So they're basically what's going off there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor McRae.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to John, because we've tried to get information out of county councillors in the past and we've not had much luck, have we? So it's appreciated, and it would be nice to, we've walked around up on the estate before, haven't we? And so, yeah, do that in your own areas because it is interesting. And Maryland Court was done yesterday and the day before.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
actually done
earlier then.
Yeah. The only thing is, if you can take this back to the county council, it'd be appreciated, because the residents up there were saying that they didn't get any, they wasn't told, and then all of a sudden the road was closed and they couldn't park there, and they've all been parking on the grass out the front, which has caused loads of other issues. So it's nice it's been done, and it's appreciated, of course it is, but if whoever does it, because I don't know who that is, if they could just make sure they give a little bit, like a leaflet through a door or something, just so people know you're not going to be able to park on your street in a couple of days, please park somewhere else. That would be brilliant, but thank you.
I'll ring that up, Richard, but I'll give you a story now. We were all delivered leaflets saying that we were cleaning gullies on Park Street, Sandy Acre Road and all that, and they all moved the cars and they didn't do it. And so when I rang Dave Walker up, he says, well, they're supposed to be there. I says, well, they're not. So again, I mean, all the gullies and all that they're supposed to have started in Orsmouth a month ago, but I've got another meeting with Dave on the 8th, and I'll chase him up again.
Thank you.
But, yeah, there you go.
So, thank you for that. I'm just going to have a quick, so we'll find out something now, aren't we? People I'm done. So, item 8, yeah? So, finance matters, pages 32 to 37. And this is to note the summary of receipts and payments for June 2022. So, where are we going to start? So, I need a proposer, please. I'll propose that. A seconder.
Second.
And everyone in favour? Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry.
Did you have a question, Councillor?
I
I
was
didn't
just
see
going to
one.
make a slight statement, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to be honest with you, I haven't had the time to look at the figures, so I'm not gonna comment on them. And I'll abstain, Madam Mayor, because it wouldn't be right.
Right, so we will move. Yeah, we'll move to vote anyway to note the summary of receipts and payments for June 2022. So all in favour? And we have. And Councillor Brindell is abstaining, yes?
Yes.
Any against?
Oh, no, abstain as well.
Oh, sorry.
You abstained.
I was abstaining.
Sorry, thank you.
So item B is the approval of payments to the 30th of June 2022. Again, can I have a proposal, please? Seconder? Thank you. Take it up, give you a little time to try to open the vote. I realise it's quite a hefty home. Are there any questions at all? Councillor McCray?
Yeah, I'm just looking through it, we've got quite a lot of Morrison's, Asda, Amazon, stuff like that, and I'm sure, I know I say this every time, I'm sorry if I go on, but where it says like Jubilee merchandise, I know the pound shop in Stapleford, he was selling absolute tons of that, and people was asking for stuff, and if he didn't have it, he was able to get it. We just seem to be spending a lot of money, not in Stapleford, when we probably could. It says refreshments at Morrison's. I'm sure there's loads of places in Stapleford that sell refreshments. Cake, Asda, these cake shops in Stapleford, there's quite a few of them. They can either make stuff or get stuff in if need be. It'd be nice to be spending this money in the town instead of Amazon and other stuff. I know sometimes it's more convenient, and I'm sure I'm as guilty as everybody, but as a council, I just think it'd be nice if we could try a little bit more to try and do it in Stapleford. Or, you know, like I say, if the items aren't there, we could ask.
I think the Morrisons was for the mare making.
It was for the buffet. This is the thing, so we do this every time. If I can spend money in Stapleford, I will absolutely spend money in Stapleford. These were things that I could not get in Stapleford, and so I've had to go elsewhere. So I'd appreciate if we didn't have to keep doing this every time. I will spend money here if I absolutely can. That's an absolute promise to councillors.
Councillor Brindell, did you have your?
Yeah, just, yes, I've said this for so many years, time and time again. You can go into a couple of shops here in Stapleford and buy stationery and stuff. I do not understand why we're having to get county, using county and other organisations, where we should, as Councillor McRae just said, I've been pounding this for years, and since I've been on the council virtually, that we've got to, Madam Mayor, we've got to use what this town has, because if not, like a bus, if you don't use it, you lose it. So I would like to see all purchases as much as possible being purchased in our town and not anywhere else, because I don't think it's fair on the residents or the businesses.
I think Councillor Grindell, as you know, I'm very keen on keeping costs down, very, very keen, probably the keenest person in here. And I think we do try, but in some circumstances, then we have no choice. I mean, we can try harder, but we are doing what we can, and I will promise you that I will, you know, keep a very keen eye on everything that goes through.
I'll keep you to that, Madam Mayor,
Yes,
thank you.
I want you to, because
Madam Mayor, if I may as well, we also have a duty to follow best value practice guidance so that we are spending money wisely and not overspending. So there's a lot of things where we get trade discounts if we go to a particular place which costs less to buy than it does going for a retail thing. So I do appreciate what you're saying, but there's a balance to be struck here and we have to follow the best practice procurement guidance.
Thank you for that, councillor.
I'm glad to hear that, Chair. That means I'll see nobody sitting outside Witherspoons.
Sorry.
Well, I'm not seeing no one sitting outside Witherspoons. They'll all be in the local pubs, won't they?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Well, I'd say that's speaking from a business point of view, that's all.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, can we get on because we're so far behind?
We can.
Thank you.
We'll move on. So,
Sorry, John.
That's all right, mate.
So item B, approval of payments to 13th of June 2022. We have, we need to move that to the vote. So all in favour, please.
Do you need a proposer?
You've already proposed
Oh, right,
it.
okay,
Yes,
right,
yes.
all right.
Right, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. 9. Oh yes, 9. And any against? Any abstentions? That's carried, thank you. So. To note, oh, right. To note the earmark, item C, to note the earmarked reserves and balances to the 30th of June 2022. Can we have a quick look at those?
Do you want me to propose?
Yes, it is, and can I have, thank you. Are we ready now to move to the vote? Can we move to the vote then, please? All in favour? Any abstentions? Any against? So we move on now to item 9. So item 9 is the annual report 2021 to 2022, pages 38 to 69. To consider and approve the draft annual report for 2021-2022 for publication. Are there any questions or comments? I'll give you a little while to go through it. Tim.
It doesn't really tick any boxes of what I thought that the annual report should be. In all honesty, I was a little bit disappointed by the format, really, because I had imagined that the best way of producing an annual report, and I've seen this done very effectively elsewhere, is to almost do a direct side by side with the corporate plan, because the corporate plan is all built on SMART objectives, and so this report reads a lot more to me like cherry picking bits that want to be said, rather than a holistic report on everything that the council wants to do, has done, hasn't done, and there's no metric in here. Consequently, I find the whole thing quite subjective in its approach. So it's not a newsletter; it's an annual report. and as such, I think it needs to be more report-like. There are a raft, unfortunately, of grammatical errors. There are. I don't think it's been properly proofread at all, Madam Mayor. I think that certainly needs to happen before I would be happy to approve it going out to the public, because at the moment, I'm afraid, to me, as somebody who has a bit of a fine eye for these things, if this landed in my inbox or on my doorstep, I would say, what manner of unprofessional organisation is that? And I'm sure that that's not the image we want to portray. The figures. I mean, I've got a lot of notes here, and I'll happily just hand them over to the town clerk to interpret, rather than me wasting time in this meeting going through line by line. But I did have a concern that I didn't think the budget elements of it were actually very transparent. I'm just trying to find the appropriate page. Excuse me.
65.
Sorry, I'm looking through my own notes. There we go. So you got the pie chart on income, and you got the pie chart on spending. And whilst I get that VAT refund is coming in to the account, and I understand that there is a corresponding VAT paid going out of the account, it skews everything else. If we're demonstrating something as a pie chart, then we really need the public to get the impression of where the money's coming in from or where the money's going out to. The hand it to HMRC and then have some of it back, or it skews the figures, and it's not really relevant to the public. And since it says a couple of times in this document, this is all about clarity, then I think, why confusticate matters by putting VAT out, VAT in on it, when it's not actually pertinent to the bottom line? That's just that's a momentary exchange, isn't it? Similarly, allotment keys security deposit. I know it's only a small wedge on the pie chart, but that isn't actually income. It might be sitting in the account for a time, but it isn't our money. We're just holding on to it. So again, it leads you to believe that ultimately the precept is less significant to the council's income than it actually is. Because if you remove those elements from it, the precept all of a sudden becomes quite a bit larger on that pie chart. I also don't fully support the figures. I don't know quite how they've been worked out, because we know that for the last couple of years at least, we've been drawing on reserves quite heavily. And, this has been a part of the annual budget. So surely, since we're drawing on reserves, we are losing money. It's knowingly having done so, knowingly signed off on it and voted for it, but we are doing so. So I don't quite see how we've got income of 153 something and spending of 124 something. That would lead me to believe, as a layperson, that we're actually making a reasonable amount of money. But we're drawing on reserves, so surely that can't be. I haven't gone through it with a fine-tooth comb to work out where I've made the calculation discrepancy. But if we're talking about presenting information in the clearest, most transparent way to the public, I think it is worth the public knowing that we're not making money. We are taking money out of reserves. We are losing money. So I think that needs to be made a lot more clear, because anybody that watches the meetings already knows this. We all know this. So it's about how we present that. And there's just a couple of other riding points on this where it's just we are changing attitudes, leading, not following. It's like, can we have some smart answers to these smart objectives, please? Because a lot of this could be considered opinion or conjecture. Unless we've got anything measurable, then really everything there is either challengeable or is propaganda. And I don't think we want to be responsible for either of those. I think things ought to be a lot clearer in terms of when we say we have done this, we come back with an example or we come back with a figure to prove it. So I'm not happy with this at all in its current form. Happy to hand over my notes to the town clerk, but I won't be supporting it today, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, this is a draft, and I'd like to thank the person who wrote this for putting it together. It was their first go. Yes, it lacks polish, and the person who wrote this is very keen to have feedback on whether this is the right direction. So it is not, feel free to critique it, and I'm sure that the feedback will be passed on. There's a few bits in this that I kind of agree with you on. I think I noticed like the income and the expenditure spending, it's kind of on its own, and maybe we would like to look at how it's changed over time. So maybe bring in some data from the previous years and look at how this is changing. I think because at the moment it is just data on its own, and it doesn't really mean anything, because what's that compared to the national average of parish councils? What's that compared to what we spent previously? What's that looking like for the future? So I think there is some polish that does need to be done on this. I kind of like the format, because if public are going to engage with this, I think if you just write it as a report, it's quite boring. So I do like the fact that it's kind of colourful, telling the story with pictures in a lot of ways, engaging with people. So I think that is a positive. But I do take on board, because, when I was reading it as well, there was some bits in there that I'm a bit analytical, and I thought that's quite subjective. But I think as a first go for this person who has gone, what do I want, probably looking at the council with fresh eyes, what do I find interesting? I think that's actually quite a nice way of doing it. I think it's not necessarily covering the full breadth of everything that we do, but obviously I think we need to give a little bit more information about more of the things that have happened, because obviously we're in quite a fast-paced environment here, and I forget what we've done week to week, and there's actually quite a lot, and I don't think this necessarily covers everything that we have done in this year. But I actually quite like the format, and I think I'd like my thanks to be passed on as well. But I mean, I don't think the person who wrote it is adverse to having the feedback, because that's what they've asked for from this meeting. So yeah, that's me finished. Thank you.
Councillor.
Item 9 it's basically asking us to approve this draft now. Why bring this draft to us when it's not even ready? That's all I say. It's asking us to approve it.
With any amendments that you want, that's what we normally do, is we bring something, if we've got comments to make, then we can either decide to approve it and delegate it to me to put those things in, or we can just reject it. It's up to you what you want to do.
Right, I think Councillor Buckingham.
I like Councillor Needham. I think the format is really good, because I think most reports people get through their door just go from the door into the recycling, hopefully into the recycling bin, or even into the ordinary bin. And I think having photographs in there, see if I recognise anybody anywhere, and having it set out differently, where it isn't just going through everything. And on the first day of the year, the council year, we did this, and on the second day we did this, and I mean that would be dreadful. So I think, my thanks to the person that did this. But I think probably we're not ready to approve it yet. But it would be good if we could, all of us, feedback positively to this person, or feedback now things that can go to this person with another one. Have we got a time limit when it's got to be published by?
Well, ideally it's published around September, when you have your end of year audit thing. So we do have a meeting at the end of September, which this could go to. So if you want me to do that, then give me all the feedback and I'll get it fed in.
I think if you feedback would be a good idea to defer it until. Would you like to have your say first?
Yeah, and just think on the data, I would have liked to have seen more data going back quite a few years. Of how money's been spent, what's coming in, what's going out. and also other local parish councils, town councils, in comparison as well to see. So we can just have a comparison of how we are doing, really.
I think, councillors, I think we're all agreed that we will defer this and take it, take on board all your comments and suggestions. So we'll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify. I wasn't criticising the ability, the efforts to present it well. It was more the subjective nature of it. I like the pictures. If we're presenting something to the public, they don't want the same level of report that we get, but it still needs to be report as in fact based. I would suggest, since this is a first go, that the author might want to have a look at. There was a recent similar report produced by the borough that contains a lot of factual information, but is designed for public consumption, or not even as a report. The Toton SPD strategic planning document, that contains a lot of very factual, very deep level information, but it's presented and the narrative around it is in such a way that actually a lay member of the public can pick it up without any knowledge of planning and get what they want out of it. So those are good examples of how to present a report to the public, and it might be worth having a look at those. Can I also just, and this will be very brief, I promise, I think the recycling page. Sorry, I'm not looking at the actual page number in the printed one that Sabrina gave us at the beginning of the meeting. The one with the reuse, reduce, responsible around Stapleford Town Council's logo. That, unfortunately, I've got to mention it at this point. It feels like to me like completely the wrong message. Sustainability and green living is much in the spotlight at the moment. I don't care whether it's in the spotlight at the moment or not. It's massively vital. I think that puts the wrong emphasis on it. We're not interested in this because it's fashionable, although it just happens to be. And it says we've looked at, essentially the summary, the feel I got from reading this is we looked at doing a lot of things that are like real. And then we decided that it's not costly. It's a costly ideal. It says in here, it's a costly ideal to do anything capital to tackle climate change. And I'm thinking, good God, we've declared a climate emergency, Madam Mayor. Yeah. You know, it's entirely the wrong message to give if we, sitting on figures elsewhere in this report, are saying to the public, we've got all of this which you don't have. And we think that spending this on carbon reduction measures is a costly ideal. I think that's the wrong message. I think that's absolutely defeating the point of what we're trying to achieve. So that needs a really close look at, because the last thing we want to do when we're not doing as much material as we'd like is to give the wrong impression and therefore lead by the wrong example.
Thank you for that. Are there any more?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may. Most people have already said quite a bit about it. I have to say to you that at the next full council meeting, I'm not quite sure if you're actually going to get this ready correctly, because there's quite a few things in here which have been discussed. It's no good rushing into this particular thing. I find, to be honest, it's dull. I find there's too many pictures. You know, I'm not into pictures. I like to read what it's all about. But you've only got 3 meetings left until next May. So I would suggest you use them wisely. For the simple reason is, if you think you can get this done by September, I would suggest that everyone gives you a written feedback that's here tonight, all councillors, and take it from there, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, I was just going to say what David said. I think there was another document that kept going back and forth for a while via email, so we've got it amended how it was meant to be, I think.
Well, I would very much appreciate the input coming from you councillors to be given to the town clerk, and we will take it back and redo it where necessary. I don't really want to be too harsh on the person that has done this, but I think it does. I think your observations
are valid.
and certainly I see the points that you've made, and it does need amendment. I mean, it will. So we're not taking a vote on that, are we? We're just simply.
Well, you need to vote to defer.
Well, we will vote to defer that, so I want a proposer, please, thank you, and a seconder. And the vote is to defer this until the September meeting.
Can we make the proposal a bit longer and say we vote to defer it, and we agree that we will send feedback to the town clerk by, name a date, Sabrina, so that you're not holding on thinking, well, maybe Ross will put something in if I wait a little bit longer.
Can we say 2 weeks?
2 weeks. So the proposal then is that, I'll make a proposal that we defer this, but that councillors give feedback
Within
by
14 days.
what's 2 weeks' time?
13th.
No, it'll be
13th of August. Friday the 13th of August.
No, it'll be 12th of August.
12th.
12th of August.
Madam Mayor, I do not wish to be upsetting everybody, but if you want me to send something in by the 13th of this month, it's impossible.
Next month.
Next month, it's impossible. You said 2 weeks. I can't do it in 2 weeks.
We've already had the 13th of this month, don't we?
I'm not doing it. Can't do it.
We don't have to.
So, for those that can send it in,
Fine.
and then if there's another draft version done, which could be sent back out to councillors to have another look at, and more comments sent in after that. Yeah?
So what is the recommendation?
So, it's getting longer and longer.
So the recommendation at the moment is to defer councillors to send feedback by the 12th of August on this initial draft. We will then circulate another draft for any further comments before it's ready to go back to council meeting.
And that is the proposal, so can we
Propose
please?
that.
Ross. Are you putting your hand up to speak?
I said I propose that.
Proposed. Oh, so you've proposed that.
I'll second that.
Yes. And it's been proposed and seconded, so can we please move to the vote? So all in favour of deferring this? I think that is unanimous, if I can just see.
Excuse me, I'm voting against. I haven't got the time to do it by then.
That's understandable. So are you abstaining, David?
Yeah, I'll abstain, yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the second time it comes out, if you've got any comments, David, you'll be able to make them then.
Okay. So right, so we're now on item 11, which is Christmas lights, page 76 to 77.
We just do it, just take it out, it's fine.
Right, the purpose of this report is to consider an offer from the Borough Council to devolve the provision of Christmas lights to the Town Council. Do you want me to read the whole of this out to you? Or are you going to go through it yourselves? Because I'm assuming that you've all read this. Councillor,
I'd welcome an introduction from the town clerk, Madam Mayor.
you would?
Yeah.
Yes, the town clerk is going to present it in light.
Thank you,
With
Madam
instructions.
Mayor.
It's all right. I'm just a little bit carried away now. with
So the reason that this has come, and I do apologise, it's not a particularly long report, but it happened on the day of sending out the agenda, but because it's something that's needs to be organised round about nowish, then I thought I had to get it to council. So what's happened is Eastwood Town Council have recently agreed that they will now provide town centre Christmas lighting and they will take that role from the borough, so the borough will no longer be doing that. So the officer that normally organises our Christmas lights has got in touch with me and said, and to Kimberly as well, and said, oh, this has happened, would you like to do the same? So I have gone back to him and said, well, can you give me some information about this? How much will it cost? You know, will we be getting the lights that you've currently got so that we can just put them up as they are? Or, you know, we haven't budgeted for this, so can you give me some more information? We had talked about this back in sort of January, when there was all the issues last time with the Christmas lights, and we've had people complaining that they don't like the colour of them. And at the time that we spoke about it, he had said, well, if you want to do it, we might give you some money. So I said, well, is that still something that the borough might be interested in doing? And he has said, I don't know, we'll have to talk about that. So at this point in time, we have not budgeted to do this. We don't have spare money to do this based on the figures that I've been given. That does not include the electricity charge. So it's an unmetered supply. So that will be on top of putting the current stock of lights up. Apparently, having spoken to Alex Khan today, our lights are pretty much broken. They're gaffer taped together, they're sellotaped together, they're sort of pushed into place. So I don't think they are fit for purpose and they're not going to last much longer. But in my opinion, I would advise that we don't do it for this year and we perhaps look at it as a possibility as part of our budget round for future years. But obviously it's up to council what they want to do.
Right, I don't know whose hand went up first, so I think it was Councillor Tim Hutton.
I'm just going to declare an interest on this. I don't normally declare an interest as a borough councillor because there's not normally anything pertinent on the agenda. I forgot about this item, Madam Mayor, so I'm declaring my interest now. It's got financial implications both ways, so I'm not going to participate in the debate or vote on it.
So I think there will be other borough councillors as well who have an interest in this. No? Councillor
No,
McRae?
I'm putting my hand up as well,
Yes,
because I
and
think
I'm
as a borough councillor,
as well. I don't know as well.
I mean,
it's a non-pecuniary interest as
Yeah.
well.
Well, it's all, and you, Janice.
and you, John,
I'll put my hand up.
keep your hand
I'll
up,
declare
can't
it.
you?
I'll keep my hand up then. I'll declare an interest.
Down to you lot, yeah.
Right.
Go on then.
So, Sabrina has spoken. So any comments? Oh,
We've all got hands
any
up.
comments? Oh, right. Sorry, I just averted my eyes for a second.
I'll go first.
I think it will Bob first.
Right, Bob.
So two quick things then. One is how green, not in colour, are our current lights, as opposed to our new ones,
I do
because
think
that's
they're all
now we've
LED
declared we're going to be
lights.
green.
Yeah, I do believe they're all LED lights, so they're as green as they can be
Yeah.
for the age of
So
them.
not halogen or anything silly. Okay. I forgot what the second thing is, so forget that. Oh yes, that's it. Is it possible to ask the town at the next Christmas set what they prefer to see in terms of colours?
A consultation.
Just make it cheap though at the time. Do you like what you see at the moment? Yes, no. What would you prefer to see?
Simon?
Because we haven't budgeted for this and we didn't know it was coming, I don't think it would be wise for us to take it on at the moment, especially when the town, Liberty Leisure, etc., has turned around and said there may be no extra funding coming for it. So I think for this year, unfortunately, we're going to have to go with what we've got. But a consultation leading up to next year would be a brilliant idea for the colours, etc., because other
We get the
people
wrong
have
thing,
said
don't we?
that the colours are cold.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I was just going to propose then that we don't for this year, but look into it for next year as part of the budget.
Take vote in a minute. So David?
Point of order, hasn't Councillor Grindell
Oh
declared
yes,
interest?
you've declared an interest.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to stand up for a second because I can't sit down too long these days.
Councillor, you're not able to speak on this because we all have a...
I
Excuse
can
me.
make a comment, but
Madam
I'm
Mayor.
not allowed to
Okay,
vote
that's
on it.
fine, sorry.
Madam Mayor, when I said that, I was only speaking on my own behalf and predominantly as a cabinet member. because when the borough finances are as much my responsibility as all of the cabinet members. So I'm not going to put myself in a position of choosing one council favourably financially over the other. I'll abstain on this one. However, I wasn't including, particularly for non-cabinet members such as yourself, Madam Mayor, or Councillor Grindell, that they should be excluded from taking part in the debate.
Right. I'm just trying to follow the protocols, and I believe that we were following the protocols then but Councillor Grindell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Christmas lights have been around a long time, haven't they? And years ago, we used to actually put £6,000 every year towards new lights. I know the whole thing's changed now. It's not like it used to be. But you need to think, as Teresa says, you need to think very carefully how you're going to do this, because it's very important, because this will have to go on for years and years, not just a year and see how it goes. It doesn't work like that. And the point about it is, could the town clerk tell me how many people actually complained about the colour of the lights?
I had 2 complaints directly. I know councillors had others because they were out in the community, but...
Well, I would tell you that, I understand, thank you, but I will tell you, for many years people have moaned about the lights. When we had them red, white, blue, green, shoot back, right, people moaned about that. They wanted something different. So the borough decided, in its wisdom in those days, that everywhere will have blue and white. And everybody thought it was wonderful, except for a few people that said, don't like that. But there are some people in our town that don't like anything. But be fair to them, when you prepare and speak to Eastwood, you've got to make sure, whatever you decide, that your contract is totally waterproof. Because if it's not, this council could land up paying a lot more money than we do now. And I'll tell you why I say that quickly, Madam Mayor, is that I was reading, the other 3 or 4 months ago, I was reading that this council did some deals with the other local council, and it all backfired, and the council that they had a contract with had no money left. You've got to be careful, very careful, because your reserves will go overnight. So I'm saying to you that it has to be waterproof, it has to, and if you enter any contract, it's got to go through a solicitor. You've got to do it right. I'm not saying that the light should be changed to a different colour. I happen to like lots of lights, all different colours. But be careful, because you might be digging yourself a hole. So, leader of the council, I'm saying to you, what I'm saying to you is from a young man, right, who doesn't know a lot, but he knows about Christmas lights, okay?
Never used to.
Thank you, David.
Well, I've heard the rest of it now, so I think it's you, councillor.
I saw that there was an option in here to look for grant funding. Is that something we could have a look at?
Yeah, we can look at this, but obviously we've already been to the lottery fund for the square sound, so I'm not sure if we'd be eligible at this point, but if you want to look at it, we'll need to do more investigation into how much it will cost. I have spoken to the clerk at Eastwood to find out some more information from her. She hasn't given me any figures, but then having spoken to Alex today, he says that they're looking at spending about £100,000 over 2 years. But they seem to have that in reserve, so it's not costing the council any extra money according to her, but again they've not been provided with a grant from the borough either at this point, so
but yeah, if we could have a look, see if there's any other grant funding, or if anybody knows any sources of funding, might be useful.
I'd say that I think at this stage we should be looking to make a change for this Christmas. I think that when Councillor Frost said that earlier on, I think there were some nods around, quite a few nods around the table that we we leave it, which gives us more time to consider all the different factors and look into possible alternate funding.
Thank you.
Can I just say to you, Madam Mayor, Councillor Patterson is half right there. What I will say is, you go for grant funding, brilliant. But what happens the following year when you don't get that grant funding? So you've got to be careful what you're doing. Don't go jumping into bed before you know that the electric heat's on, right?
We get it, David.
Because,
That's good.
because at the end of the day, it's the people's money that you've got to think about, not us.
I know. Thank you. Thank you for that. Finally,
Yeah, if we look at the LED light systems that we've got today, as you'll point out, Tim, you know as well as I do, an LED system can change colour from white to red to blue, etc. So with the new systems that are coming out with the LEDs, we can have every colour we want. We can wrap it round Dave's house if he particularly likes it and make it go pink, yellow and green. We can do anything. It's the new invention of, well, they've been around for years, but the invention of the LEDs were coming down in price to such a degree now. If we wait the year, see if we can get the funding, and see if we can get some grant from Borough as well, or maybe even from county, then we can get these devices and then move forward. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Just one other comment to throw out there. I mean, the cost of a bespoke light can be upwards of £250. Have we ever thought about asking people if they wanted to sponsor a new light?
Yeah.
Good thought.
Yeah.
Well, that can go in the consultation, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
where would you like me to take this now?
We've had a motion, there was no
So-
seconder as far as I'm
We
on
haven't
track.
seconded it yet. We haven't proposed or seconded yet, so I need a proposer and a seconder, please.
I think I proposed
Yes.
that we
Oh,
consider
yes.
this for
Okay.
at the next.
Norman
Right,
second.
sorry.
Before it goes, did it include consultation within that?
Yeah, we
Yes,
can put
it is.
consultation in there as well.
And it was fine, it was seconded.
Now we are moving to the next vote. So we have proposed and seconded the recommendations, so can we please move to the vote? So all in favour?
What exactly was the proposal?
Basically,
To do nothing for now
Yeah.
and think about it for next year.
Yeah,
Have a
and then have a
consultation,
consultation.
so-
Yeah. Yeah, because we need to consider it as part of the budget. So to consider it as part of the budget, yeah.
So
All in favour?
I have done all in favour, and then
They were disturbed partway through.
So all in favour, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to take against and abstentions, Madam Mayor?
Sorry, I will take the
Okay.
abstention. Thank you for that, Tim. So all abstentions, please. Thank you. Any against? No, there are none
Standing orders if we're running over time.
We'll do, yeah.
Oh, is it that time? Oh, we've had an.
Well, we're coming to 9 o'clock, Chair, so that's standing orders finish at 9. So if we want to carry on for another half hour, then we need to move that.
It's going to take more than half an hour.
Then
Can I propose that we have an extension of the standing orders? Obviously, we took a little break earlier on, just to make that time back up.
Are we having a Kit Kat break then?
Sorry, what are we voting on? So we are suspending standing orders and taking a little bit more time because we've.
Chair, unfortunately, I can't stop.
That's fine.
I need to go as well, sorry.
That's no problem, so councillor in favour.
Central things though, and there are other central things.
Okay. I can't concentrate.
Okay,
Yeah,
shall we take
we're
a
gonna
joint-
have a toilet break, because I can't concentrate. So
Water tablets.
we just have 5 minutes.